All right, everyone, let's play Spot the Hypocrites, namely people that aren't calling Representative Steve Cohen a virulent sexist for what he said about Marsha Blackburn. Of course, Cohen's a Democrat. And he came out and said, well, I wish Marsha Blackburn would jump off a cliff. Now, it is in the context of humor. What do we know about people who are maybe on the left? They tend to be Democrats, although a lot of them are Greens, and then they get called Russians at this point. They get called secret Trump supporters for supporting the Green Party, of all things. What do we know about them? They don't see that as humorous. Generally speaking, they would just see that as sexist and evil and bigoted and wrong, and they would say the person needs to be deplatformed. Can you imagine if a Republican senator or representative were to say this about a Democratic colleague who happened to be female? Or what if it was someone of a different race? Then it would be even worse to them. They would be demanding that they be impeached. They would be up in arms. There'd be a pitchfork-waving mob chanting in the streets of their home state, demanding their resignation. And they'd probably get it, because the Republicans are used to basically putting their heads in the sand and shivering and cowering and not really standing up for themselves. They like to lose gracefully, it's been said. But that's exactly what would happen. And it's hypocritical. I mean, if this dude were a regular user and said something akin to that on Twitter, it would probably get banned off the platform. Again, unless he has a verified badge, which, you know, as a representative, he probably does. This is the problem with our culture. The problem is that people are too censorious. Like, when I look at this, I say, well, you know, he's an old dude, maybe he had a senile moment or something. I don't care whether he even meant it seriously. I don't think he should be kicked out of Congress or deplatformed off the web or whatever because he made, you know, what amounts to a fucking stupid joke. It isn't funny. I don't know exactly what the punchline is. Just because you smirk after you say something doesn't mean anyone else is going to find it funny. But should he suffer any substantial repercussions for that? No, absolutely not. And I don't sit there thinking that Steve Cohen is sexist for saying this. It's in, again, the context of you got two powerful people in Congress competing political parties, self-explanatory. But this happens all the time online, and all you hear is sexist, sexist, sexist. Oh, this person, he must hate women. It's like Ocasio-Cortez and Ben Shapiro there. Cortez coming out and saying stupid things. She's a political hack, a loser. She doesn't know what she's talking about half the time. And she believes in an abusive ideology that has killed tens or hundreds of millions of people in the last century. Shapiro comes out and says, well, I'll give you $10,000 to debate me. Immediately, her fans and her herself, leading the charge, of course, turn it around as though it was some sort of sexist statement. Now, if Shapiro had said that to a male politician, nobody would say that. She attributes it to catcalling, and apparently her fans are dumb enough to take that claim seriously. She just got off the midterms having endorsed 9 candidates, 8 of which lost their bids. And she's, you know, obviously having problems and goes after him. Ben Shapiro is not even a principled individual. In my opinion, he's a sellout. He's pro-deplatforming in some cases, in Roseanne's case. In every case, it doesn't involve someone on the left, mysteriously, or so it seems. He's just basically a neocon. He's an opportunistic war hawk, too. I'd like to debate the dude. But Ocasio-Cortez couldn't debate her way out of a paper bag, so she's not going to take that offer. It wouldn't matter, some high school debate class could be like, will you come in? Oh, you're a bunch of evildoers, a bunch of right-wing Nazi sexists or something. It's probably what she would say. No. Steve Cohen shouldn't be deplatformed or kicked out of Congress for that, although he is facing calls from a lot of people that are like, oh, you need to do more than apologize. You shouldn't even be in that job anymore. It would be very, very funny indeed if the Democrats ended up not retaking the House because of Steve Cohen. You look at the generic congressional ballot. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about this. I'm trying to wait for one more poll. Congressional generic ballot. The Democrats were about 8 points ahead a month ago. Now they're less than 4 points ahead. It's begun to move in the Republicans' favor again. At least one firm shows a dead tie. That hasn't happened before. We haven't, as far as I know, there hasn't been any other generic ballot poll in the entire cycle that has shown it that close. And the only reason it's not down around 2.5 points advantage for the Democrats instead of 3.9 is because they're still amalgamating one older poll because they don't have a newer poll to replace it with, and that's the one that showed them 7 points ahead from like 2 weeks ago. So it's really funny. And this is the sort of thing. This is the Democrats doing stupid things that could snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Now, of course, keep in mind, there's plenty of time for the Republicans to do that too. They have a penchant. They're more dumb than the Democrats when it comes to that. They'll be doing fine, and they get too comfortable. And they get nervous when things are going well. So then somebody does something stupid so that they can be the underdogs again. The Republicans have done this so many times. Like, they did this 3 times with the fucking ACA. They had a mandate to repeal and replace. They decided to dick around. Paul Ryan puts forth his dumb plan. McConnell puts forth his dumb plan. Rand puts forth a more sane idea, more of a skeletal general plan, and it gets dogpiled by a bunch of neocons. Trump's like, fuck it, basically. At this point, he no longer even mentions the ACA. I wonder why. Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure was another thing that I predicted may very well happen because of the way the Republican Senate works. No. So Steve Cohen, at least under the auspices of the logic so-called used by the Democrats, used by people on the left, he's a virulent bigot and should resign. I just don't think that. I don't care if he's got a D after his name. By the way, when people on the right take up this tactic and they're like, well, hold them to their same, Saul Alinsky style, hold them to their same standards, they've trapped you into supporting censorship so that you sound like people on the left. I'm sorry, I don't think that's a good strategy. Because necessarily you're going to be the main targets of that. The fact they're willing to jettison Steve Cohen or a few commentators and pundits once in a while. 90% of the people that get deplatformed won't be on the left. That's the whole point. They're hoping that that's the way you react. It's a form of entrapment, really, philosophical entrapment. You're cheapening your own ability to fight against censorship and thus defend your own generally superior opinions if you're not a socialist or whatever. If you happen to be a libertarian. I see libertarians sardonically remarking about deplatforming people. I'm sitting there chuckling at their short-sightedness, their lack of apparent political expertise. It's very funny. So no, I don't want him deplatformed. I do think that he's crazy. Right before the midterms, he's going to make that sort of mistake. It's like the Democrats right now, they're really hoping certain people in their party don't speak. They're hoping Hillary Clinton doesn't speak. They're hoping Steve Cohen doesn't speak. They're really hoping that Michael Moore shuts up. Right now, they're trying to keep looking presentable. They would rather be silent and not seen at all, because they know that there are a lot of scumbags within the party that make really, really easy fodder. It's sort of like the Republicans. There are certain people there that you don't want to speak. It's just the way that it works. That's about all. Peace out.